Hi, this is Father Bill W. here in Austin, Texas, and I want to welcome you back to another episode in our podcast series. We're doing a series on William James, father of American psychology, man who was mentioned prominently in the Big Book and played a significant role, I believe, in certainly in the development of Step 1 and 12 with Bill Wilson. And has an influence, I think, throughout the book. And that's what we're learning in this series. So the idea behind these podcasts is to try to take people a little bit deeper into the spirituality of AA, the history of AA. And I'm particularly interested in the practice of two-way prayer that was done in the early part of the program, but got lost. It came from the Oxford group, and was listening to God, writing down the thoughts that come, and had a profound effect on people. And we're going to kind of maybe touch on that just a tad in this episode. So encourage you to go to the website. It's called Two-Way Prayer. Encourage you to attend one of our monthly workshops. You can find those on the website, or you can write me at two-way prayer, TWO, two-way prayer, @gmail.com, and I will send you a flyer with 6 months worth of lined up workshops. Okay, so I'm not going to do a long introduction. We're at about step 11, so I'm assuming everybody's kind of been with us throughout this. And my guest is Paul S., who is coming to us from Barcelona. And Paul is the author of a terrific book. It's titled We Agnostics, How William James Advanced a Spiritual Solution to Addiction. And again, I put that in the show notes. Encourage you to pick up a copy of that, and you will be happy that you did so. It's really, really well done and inspirational. Really inspirational. I mean, it's Paul, you've done a great job of kind of pulling together James's rather deep thoughts and blended them kind of seamlessly with the Big Book, 12 and 12, and that kind of thing. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
On that. I thought we'd begin with just a tiny little review, not going over the stuff, but what I want to do in this episode is look at some of the spiritual practices that James mentions in his book and that you catalog very nicely. But I don't want to just start in midair. So why are we doing this is the question, and we touched on this in our last episode on steps 10 and 11, and it's where James lays out that there are almost like two minds within us. I would call it the ego mind, and then the deeper, the unconscious mind, the self within. And like the title of your chapter notes, we have business with this higher power. And the business is letting go of the one mind and entering into dialogue, communication, conscious contact with the other mind that is already within us. It's like the Big Book says, God, the last damn place we'd ever look. The great reality is within. And James says this. He says there are dead feelings, dead ideas, and cold beliefs, and there are hot and live ones. And when one grows hot and alive within us, everything has to recrystallize about it or around it. So that's why we're doing these practices that we're going to explore here today, that there's a reason for it. It's to shift our consciousness. Like step 11 says, to be in conscious contact with this higher power. So these are some ways of affecting that new relationship. Is that fair? Is that fair to say, Paul?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that sets us off. So
and of course,
let's get
the mark of that ego is fear, right? And
yes.
James comes to that conclusion very clearly. It's fear. It's a sense of alienation. The analogies he uses are the person on the outside looking into the restaurant from outside the window and wondering, why can't I be in there? Why am I out here? How come I can't get in? It's that feeling of apartness and alienation and fear. And of course, the accompanying emotions are depression, anxiety, and that constant sense. I love the analogy he has of the minds are like a shuttlecock during a badminton game, going back and forth, conflicting emotions, and this needs to be reordered and turn toward a new reality that can offer a sense of stability, a sense of peace of mind, a sense of permanence, a sense of happiness, and the two most important things: a sense of belonging,
right.
And a sense of union, and a sense of largeness of life. And he says those are the marks of a spiritual experience. If you wonder if you had one, there's two things that are common. I feel like I belong, I feel a union with something, and I feel like life is larger. And those are the marks of that thing we go to that is the hot and is reforming. And the cold stuff, which is the fear, the alienation, the sense of being on the outside, the sense of being of two minds about everything, that turns cold and it drops away, it breaks away. And the cold icicles falling away and the new warmth reforming. And if we don't have that, William James is pretty clear. This is where, relapse occurs. He was working with a woman, and he makes a great analogy that when you haven't quite done this and you haven't got to that new area of warmth, you're like the person who is trying to sleep without sleeping pills, but you always leave a bottle of sleeping pills on the nightstand just in case. Because you haven't quite gotten to the other side. And so it's back to what you said the other day when we talked, Bill, is that the half measures avail us nothing. Half measures don't avail us half, they avail us nothing. And so you have to get to that sort of a critical mass of warmth in order for this thing to really take hold. And so I think that's why, it's recommended to do 1 through 12. And not do the old 2-step, which is step 1 and step 12 and nothing in between, or none of them.
But
Right.
there is a sliding between these two also, wouldn't you say so?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think that's
yeah.
right. I think that's right. But I think also, there's that phrase that the road gets narrower. And I think as we get more and more time, those periods when we slide back and we can be asses or, imperious or snotty or throw temper tantrums, a discomfort quickly occurs.
I can't get away with what I used to get away.
Yeah, or I don't rate this behavior. I need to stop this.
Right.
And all of us, deal with things. I know people with 20, 30 years, they're dealing with sexual issues, gambling issues, always picking the wrong girlfriend or the wrong boyfriend. Always looking for trouble in people rather than looking for somebody who's going to give them who's going to offer them a safe home, etc. And these are the realities that it's called life.
That's right. And anyone who's working a spiritual program is going to fluctuate between these two states, the warmth and the cold. I feel connected to God. I feel disconnected. So I think it's real important that people not feel guilty because of that. It's just the way it is,
Yeah. Great point. Great point.
Yeah,
Great point.
So these practices that are referenced in James, you put them together in a really nice list, and I'd like to go through them. But keep in mind that that's what we're trying to. These are practices that are there to get us back on course as we drift, as we leak. I fill up with
Yeah,
spirituality and then I leak.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I got
You
to
spring a
go
leak. Yeah,
bring a leak. Go fill up every day. So let's get started with
yeah,
them. First, number one, boy, this one hurt. Abandon self-responsibility. Acknowledging that the person is not God, that the person doesn't get to decide the outcome of the universe. The big book references this, saying, we had to quit playing God. And James suggests that rather than playing God, we abandon ourselves to a higher power who matches our own ideals. So
yeah.
it's getting rightly related um, to
And
this.
and right sized, right? And my
Right
mentor
sized.
always told me, he says, Paul, this is not about acceptance. I really love the phraseology he used. And he was a Jesuit. He said, it's not acceptance, it's radical acceptance. I want you to see acceptance in your life as radical. And I really like that word. I attach to it. And I tell that to all the guys I work with when I do drug and alcohol counseling, radical.
Right.
Radical acceptance of what's in front of you. And of course, he uses that great line. He knew Margaret Fuller, for God's sake, he knew everybody in the whole East Coast. He was a very, connected guy. And he recalled a conversation, Thomas Carlyle or Margaret Fuller said, I accept the universe. And Thomas Carlyle said, egad, she'd better. There's about, 100 million stars against one. And so you better,
It doesn't stop us, though. It doesn't stop us.
Right,
that's
right.
the phenomenal thing about
right? Yeah, it's funny.
It's a form of madness.
Indeed, it's delusion. It's delusionality. It is delusionality. And of course, when I was in my Mad Hatter drinking a lot, I just thought I was responsible for the earthquake in Iran.
Everything.
That everything.
That's right.
All the bad stuff was my fault, and so. I took responsibility for my family. I told everybody that I was a shame collector. I was collecting my shame and everybody else's shame.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
I remember when I was still drinking, I threw a party and people came and it rained and I apologized for the weather. I mean, isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
If I had really done this right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you get to see the I mean, and it's so subtle. So anyway, that's a really important one. Stop playing God, getting down to right side. Accept the world. Number two, accept the world moment by moment. Everything in this moment is just as it should be. It's too bad we don't do the second half of the Serenity Prayer. Taking this sinful, and I always add broken, taking this broken world as it is, not as we would have it. So there's that element of acceptance, moment to moment. This is the way it is, that cuts down a lot of fighting, a lot of fighting. So Eckhart Tolle was, he must have been reading James too. So the power of now.
And of course, William James, makes it very clear that this idea runs throughout every one of these religious, spiritual movements, Hinduism, Buddhism.
That's right.
It's all about the moment. And that's another one of the great features of the book is just how similar all these different spiritual movements are over the last 3,000 years, not how different they are.
That's right. So for each one of these 13 or 14, he's going to give several references from the various faith traditions saying how they support this, come from this place as well. So there's nothing unique in one. There's something very common to all of them.
Yeah.
And the third was stop fighting. The battle is done after a spiritual experience. The smaller and convulsive self, the little self, gives way, falls away, and dies. Then you quote Bill Wilson saying, we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, for by this time sanity will have returned.
Yeah.
I mean,
and there's a great Al-Anon, lesson here as well is, we don't look at fighting other people's battles, especially, which I think is a secret agenda of a lot of people who drink, is looking for the burning ship, to go onto the burning ship and fight the battle, knowing that the ship is going to go down. Because I'd rather go down with a burning ship than, be by myself, for God's sake, right? I mean, so there's a lot of craziness here. And you know what? One of my dear friends, Bill, he said something that was so profound and it was so simple. And he said, I want to tell you guys, and he was in the military, and he said, Napoleon Bonaparte had one standing order for all of his troops during all of his campaigns in all of Europe. When you are alone and unarmed, surrender is permissible. And what is the definition of surrender? The definition of surrender is to go over to the winning side. That is the definition of surrender in the dictionary. I love that. That hit me real hard. When you're alone and unarmed, surrender is permissible.
That's right. And I think it's a very good point about don't take up other people's battles. The Al-Anon piece that you mentioned, Paul, that when other people's ships are on fire, they have a tendency to pull up to our little frigates. Well, exactly, come on board, and bring the fire along with you. And there goes our peace of mind.
In our bazooka. Yeah, I know, right.
Yeah. So learning to set those boundaries.
Don't fight other people's battles for them. Be careful. Watch out where you stick your flag. Be careful about where you put your flag.
Right. That's right. Yeah. The next one, practice yoga. And James quotes the experimental union of the individual with the divine through various types of exercises, diet, posture, and breathing. When I was reading this, I was reminded, when I got sober, I was very disconnected from my body. I had escaped into my mind, and it was hell, but it was the only place I knew to go, and reconnecting with the body was really important in early sobriety. And so yoga, walking. Geez.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yeah, that's exactly my same experience, Bill. Especially when you have, the elements of sexual abuse involved, and also if you're gay and you're so ashamed of the act of sex that you're told it's bad, you're going to go to hell, you're damned, it's illicit, it's illegal. And so a lot of people in the gay community are disconnected from their bodies, and it's really vital to reconnect with our bodies. And of course, I did a lot of meditation when I first got sober. With just I taught myself just with like a clock with 3 minutes. I just started with 3 minutes and just did my breathing. Now I run every day for about 45 minutes. When I cleaned up, I bought a house. I had a huge garden. I gardened for 2 years, Bill. I created a rose garden, a koi pond garden, plum tree garden, and a garden for bulbs. And then, you know what? After about 2 years, I stopped it and I sold the house and I never gardened again.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what. If that's what you need to do it.
Oh,
and of course,
absolutely.
you and I both know the wonderful Tyler Dawn. Both of us are a friend of hers, and she does some great stuff with the mind, body, spirit, in the physical stuff that she does as well. So there's so many different ways to go about this, but I think it's vital to reconnect with the body because there's so much sexual shame for people in recovery. It's so much sexual shame, and it's really vital to reconnect with our bodies because our trauma lives in our bodies. There's a great book I read called "The Body Keeps the Score." It's an international bestseller written by a Dutch doctor at Boston General, I believe, who was the head of the psychiatric trauma unit there. And a beautiful book about how we deal with the physical trauma. So much of the trauma of our memories lives in our bodies. And we have to come to terms with that in order to be able to sit with ourselves because we live in our bodies. There's no way around that.
And the physical exercise and just doing things with your body intentionally is extremely helpful. Sometimes in my two-way prayer, I'll get guidance. Go work in the garden today. And Paul, there's something about me putting my hands in the dirt that connects me to a part of life that I am ordinarily not well connected to.
Yep.
You
And I
follow
am
that?
doing that right now. I'm doing it right now. I just started a rose garden. I have 14 roses I planted about a
Yeah.
month ago, and it's sort of winter here. What winter, right? In Barcelona. But you
Yeah.
know what I learned? What I learned with gardening was things grow as fast as they grow. They can't grow faster than they grow. You know,
Oh, if you really yell at them, they will. Huh? Well, come on, you damn
If you
petunia.
hit them, they will grow faster. Yeah, and stomp on them. Yeah,
Stop.
right. So that's right, exactly right. And so I just noticed. In fact, I named I named each rose after some of the people I work with, and I sent a photograph to them and said, "Hey, you know what? Your rose is actually growing faster than everybody else, or your rose is actually still dormant and it's taking time." And they just love it. It's really great. And it teaches.
It sounds funny, but it's really a way of connecting someone who has been so disconnected. And that's the thing we need.
Yeah,
That's
right. Exactly. So true. So true.
I had a guy, well, I mean, when I got sober, it was like, okay, the first thing you get, you're not ready for a dog, get a plant and try not to kill the plant.
Yeah, don't kill the plant. Yeah.
Then if you've made it through the plant, go get a cat, or a fish. You work your way up the food chain.
Yep. That's right. That's right. I got a dog after my garden survived a year. I thought I could.
There you go. You're ready for that. Yeah. Now he can go run it.
That's right. No, the physicality is critically important. And for me running every day, in the afternoon, I just feel so much better. And it's a time for me to be able to just, listen to my breathing when I'm running. And it's really wonderful. But it's something that I've turned into a habit. And I've lost 30 kilos in sobriety as well. I've had to do all that, really concentrate on reestablishing my relationship with food,
right,
and reestablishing my relationship with my muscles. That's something that has been a hard part of my journey as well.
You're not alone in that, brother. Meditate, number 5. You quote James saying this: meditation is the window through which the mind sees a wider and more inclusive world. There are so many different windows, but all seem to make the world larger and closer, and all offer a sense of cheerfulness. So you're coming closer to this warmth, closer to this different center inside of your mind. And as you do, it's going to bring about greater peace. Internal peace. Nothing changes outside, but inside you're reorienting yourself to that. And meditation is vital for this.
Yeah, you know what, Bill, I have to tell you, this is when I did a meditation course with this wonderful Episcopalian priest in Santa Monica, which is where I was living. And we did a 3-week thing. And he was so great. He said, look, I'm going to put a bunch of stuff out and we're going to go through each one of these. And if it works, for God's sakes, use it. And if it doesn't work, for God's sake, get rid of it.
So with these different techniques,
So incense, candles, icons, beads, chanting, walking, swimming, anything, right? And we're going to go through all of these in the next 3 weeks. Pick them up. If you want to stare at something, at an icon, great. If you don't. I like incense. That's great for me. I love music. Beads don't work. Icons don't work. Candles don't work for me. Walking doesn't work. Flying a kite doesn't work. Incense and music works. That's me. Some people go to a high mass and listen to the organ and high mass incense and the cathedral windows. That's not for me. A lot of people like that.
Right.
But it was really great. He's brutally pragmatic about try it and see if it works. If it doesn't, throw it out, right? If it works, keep with it. And then sometimes you're going to transition to something else. And I really love that advice. I never thought of it. I felt like I didn't have a right to refuse a means of meditation. Very silly thinking.
Well, I think people, particularly in 12-step, I have noticed, when you mention the word meditation, it always usually goes to an Eastern form of meditation, of quieting the mind. And many addicts have monkey mind with very little ability to quiet the mind. And so we feel like, we fail at that. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I really like two-way prayer. It didn't say you had to quiet your mind. You just have to take notes on what the hell's going on in your mind. Well, I can do that.
Yeah.
That was a much easier way to start.
And for a lot of people, meditation is physical, right? For me, running is great. That's when I have my greatest. I used to live on the beach in Santa Monica. I used to just go walking on the beach a lot. I used to love that, and go swimming in the ocean. That was really great. So yeah, so there's so many ways to skin a cat here. I think experimenting is vitally important.
Prayerful reading is the old interpretation of meditation also, is it not? I mean, to read a piece of scripture or a holy guided book, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But to read it slowly.
Yeah.
And let it sink in, soak in it. That can be a form of meditation. Even if people just starting out, take just a paragraph from the big book and read it slowly.
Yeah. Or a paragraph of this book. I mean, there's so much going on in this book as well.
Oh yeah,
also,
any book, any
the one that I
spiritual
used,
book.
I've been using it for more than 10 years in a row. Touchstones is a meditation. It's a daily meditation for men. It's from Hazelden. I love it. It's great. I love it. I use that every day, and this one. I know this one.
Yeah,
because
this is where I tell people, save your money. Listen to God and write your own meditations.
Yeah.
And
I like that. I like it.
I do too. I do too.
I like it.
It's very practical. Play music. This is number 6. Play and listen to music. What is it about music? James says, it seems that music works best to speak to us about mystical truth. It takes you somewhere. It opens up something inside your unconscious mind, and you're able to connect to it. For a while there, I added in my morning quiet time, just listen to a piece of music, a taze piece of music, something calming, reflective, settle down with it. But again, isn't it connecting to that deeper part of your mind that music does it?
And of course, as a psychiatrist and somebody who was a medical doctor, this is William James telling us for one of the first times ever. He said, "Look at this is 1902." He says, "I'm pretty sure I'm right. I can't prove it, but I think the same part of the mind," and he's talking about the brain, where we find that spiritual connection is the same part of the brain where we appreciate music. There's something going on there.
That's right.
In the same area. And so this is the medical doctor, William James talking. It's really interesting. I found that very helpful.
There's a thing called holotropic breath work. I won't get into it now, but they used to use LSD to access this part of the mind. And the fellow who developed it, when LSD got into some problems, he discovered that music, properly done, properly chosen, could take you on a journey every bit as much as could the LSD. It was amazing. So absolute proof that what you're saying is true, that there is a part of the mind that responds to this music, and if we can connect with it, it's like it shuts down the cognitive part of the thinking mind and opens up the spiritual part of the unconscious. And that's where it's coming from. All of this, I mean, where does God live? I don't think he lives in my liver. I think he lives in the unconscious. And James is really doing pioneer work in this regard and saying, look, guys, there's stuff that's happening here. We've been aware about it for 5,000 years. We haven't had the right words, but now we're starting to get it. And now we can start looking at it and seeing why it works.
And Carl Jung's foundational stuff is all coming from William James.
Yeah, it's all coming from the unconscious.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all coming from the unconscious. To make the unconscious conscious is what I think God is about, and he wants to do it through your unconscious and through my unconscious, which is the only reason we have 7 or 8 billion of us here. He's
Yeah.
he's got a lot to say. Keep an open mind. Number 7, keep an open mind, watchfulness, wonder, the wonder to what's going on around us.
And that sense of William James saying that if we're careful about this one and we keep an open mind, we're going to have a sense that we are tapping into something that was a forgotten memory. There was something that was always there that we kind of forgot, and now we are remembering. And there's a quote of Alfred Tennyson. Moreover, something is or seems that touches me with mystic gleams, like glimpses of forgotten dreams, right. Of something felt, like something here, of something done, I know not where, such as no language may declare. And that was something I picked out of what William James was talking about. The forgotten memory, we somehow remember something that we had forgotten. And I love that. That's what I kind of experienced early on.
That's right. That we have forgotten at the conscious level, but remains within us in the unconscious level.
Yeah.
And that's what is now bubbling up to the surface. So when they say the great reality is within, what happens in meditation, and what happens in all of these 14 different practices, is we get in touch with one fella called it the beyond that is within.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the mystical. Repeat key messages, words or phrases. Big Book talks about thy will be done, pausing during the day when agitation comes, to get some phrases, to get some things that are meaningful to a person, and to then just repeat them, to quiet the monkey mind,
And I think there's elements of transcendental meditation in this as well. I think some of the basic rudiments of transcendental meditation are the constant repetition of chanting phrases and so forth. And I use that a lot as well. But my chant, my repetition is thank you. When my monkey mind goes, I just keep saying thank you as many times as I need to, and it tends to quiet down.
It's probably more than 5, isn't it?
About 500. Yeah.
and that's what they're getting to here. Listen, guys, this isn't going to go away quickly or easily. But don't think, I say it 3 times, click my ruby red slippers, and I'm off to Oz,
Yeah, off to the races. Yeah, no way.
The Jesus prayer in the Eastern Church. Lord Jesus, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Over and over, 1,000 times a day. The Way of the Pilgrim, a marvelous little Russian book about the Jesus prayer. I mean, the whole Eastern Church is kind of built around that, and it's very much unknown in the Western Church. We're much more analytical, cognitive, all of that stuff. So I'll put that book. It's an important book. It's a little classic. I'll put that in the show notes. And then in the Hindu tradition, yapam, if I'm pronouncing that right, just saying the holy name of God over, not as a curse word. Sometimes some of us already have a head start with that, but to say it meaningfully over and over and over again. And what does it do? It puts you in a different place.
Yep.
Puts you in a different place.
Seems to.
Yeah, and that's where we need to go. Look for the truth in paradoxes. This is number 9. Look for the truth in paradoxes. To gain more, desire less. If you want to save your life, lose it. All of these kind of things. The St. Francis prayer, which is mentioned in the 11th step in the 12 and 12. It's better to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved, to reflect on these. And what do we find? We find the wisdom, which it doesn't make it whatever that thing in the music you were talking about earlier, Paul, the wisdom resides in the same place.
Yeah, seems
and
like
you're
it. Mhm.
and you're touching it when you're hitting this. You, you may not be able to articulate it, but you know it's true. You just
Yeah. I had a good friend in my old home group. He actually won an Academy Award for set design. His name starts with a G. And he said, I said, I'm really nervous. I have a job interview. This was when I was just cleaning up in the first couple of years. He said, Paul, there's a job interview prayer on page 99 of the 12 and 12. And I'm like, oh my God, really? I have to go look for it. And then I went to it, and it's like, Gene, you asked, that's the St. Francis prayer. And he goes, I know, that's the prayer for everything. It's the prayer for the interview prayer. It's the prayer for, not getting a job prayer. It's a really good prayer for everything.
It's a really good prayer.
You dirty dog, And so, it's a really neat thing to be looking at. And of course, I think the St. Francis prayer is really, celebrating the contradictions, that abound. And again, we talked about that a few sessions ago, Bill, where, William James talks about the vertigo that we get if we ponder the contradictions of spiritual experiences.
And they are paradoxes, is what he's saying here. They seem to conflict. If I look at this one and I look at that one, it's almost diametrically opposed. And yet, if I will allow them to come together, it's going to bring about a transformation of my consciousness.
Indeed.
And that,
good way to put it.
We're sober drunks. Well, wait a minute, sober or drunk? Which? No, we're both. We're both. And if you are a sober drunk, you know what that means. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you don't, you'll say, well, just be one or the other. No, I need the two.
Yeah.
There's the tension of the two kind of coming together that creates the third. And it's that third that is a new level of consciousness. Number 10, celebrate in your own way. He says some go to church to worship, some go to the garden, but celebrate it. Go to your,
and some people need institutions to get spirituality. That's great, right? He talks about they need the majestic, they need institutions, they need the stained glass windows and the incense are his exact words,
They raise your mind and your heart up to God. I mean, that's the whole thing behind the cathedrals.
Some people need complex, some people need simple. We're all very different, and all of that should be applauded. And of course, I think that Bill Wilson's warning in the big book and saying, be quick to see where others have a point in religion.
People, he said, where religious people are right.
Yeah, exactly. And then some people are very anti-church. That's fine too, right?
And be quick to see where religious people are wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's such a wide array of that's why the 12-step movement really gets a hats off from so many people, because it is like, this is a wide and roomy place. Everyone is welcome, and you just pick your own higher power as you see fit. That's that's none of AA's business. It's interesting,
Right. Because the danger is we will do to AA what we did to religion. We will turn it into a magical form and miss the message.
I think that's right. I think turning it into something like a sect is problematic. Yeah,
that's right.
I think that's right. I don't think that's what the founders had in mind at all.
No.
And again, it's back to what you made a great point earlier on. The whole 12-step movement in the 30s, 40s, even into the 50s was a radical experiment. There was constant experimentation. And I think we would behoove ourselves to think about that because I did a convention, a addiction convention in Hong Kong several years ago, and I invited this colonel. She was a sober colonel in the U.S. Army, and she was a psychiatrist, and she'd been sober like 14 years. And she said, "I challenge everybody here to be experimental. This program was built on experimentation. And we have seen a plateau in the 12-step movement in the last 15 years. And I want everyone to ask themselves, why are we seeing a plateau in the 12-step movement in America? We should be always increasing our size. And if there's a plateau, then something is wrong, and we need to review whether there's too much. Are we becoming big book thumpers? Is there too much of a sect-like appeal that is turning people off? What's going on here?" And I was blown away, and I was just, she's on to something. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I see this with young people who've had the 12 steps kind of shoved down their throats since they were 16. Is this all you have to offer? As if it's memorize them, if it's regurgitate them, if it's mechanize them, and if that's all we have to offer, it's not going to carry. If it's entree into the depths of spirituality, and then, as you say, through experimentation, through creativity, through aliveness, through the heat that James is talking about here, show them the warmth, the heat, not the cold. As when he's talking about alcohol, what did he say? It gets the yes factor going, huh? It says yes, 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 and sobriety says no, no, no. Well, recovery has got to say yes, 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 and that's more than just mechanical, stuck stuff.
Yep.
If anything, behind these sets of podcasts, that's this thing I want to get through to people, that recovery is discovery.
It's a great adventure.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's right. I'm coming up on 50 years. I still feel like a newcomer. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, you're great. Oh yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah. And many of my friends would say, you should feel like a newcomer.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Those who know me. Well, we'll get into our dark side another episode. Number 11, act as if. James says, we can act as if there were a God, feel as if we were free, consider nature as if she were full of special designs. Boy,
great stuff.
Yeah. It's great stuff. Don't we act as if the world is going to fall apart? Those of us with sick souls, what's going to go wrong today? What's already wrong? That's the way my mind operates naturally. I am not a happy, joyous, and free person by nature. I'm not. I'm just not. Never a bliss
either.
Never a bliss ninny. Bliss ninnies is what we used to call them. Another bliss ninny over there.
Yep.
But to act as if I'm going to have a good day. Act as if the universe cares.
Act as if. I love what he says. That get a sense of what might be. Get a sense of possibility rather than failure. Or, I love his imageries are so beautiful. He said, imagine what a bar is like when it's being brought to a magnet. Be the bar that's being pulled by the magnet. Allow yourself to feel pulled by something. Right. I think it's beautiful language.
That's right. That's right. And this is an interesting one. You say, pray to or beg your higher power. And I really like the emphasis on the begging. James says, the key of the contemplative life consists in the humble prayer of the beggar, which escapes from the fervent soul.
Yeah, it's great. And
it's a place that you're coming from inside.
Yeah. It's a respectful humility. It's not groveling. There's a very big difference
No,
there.
it's not
And I like that a
groveling.
lot.
It's not groveling. It's taken this sinful, broken world as it is, not as we would have it, but also saying, I need some help with this today. Not to change it, but to support me in it, you know? And that's it's a begging. It's a begging. Jung said prayer is certainly allowed when the universe has given you more than you can handle. You know,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
and that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that, and so, but that's the kind of prayer, not the prayer on page 72 or 96. I mean, those formalized prayers. I suppose they have a place.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
I'm
of
not a
that,
fan
but
either. I'm much more a
yeah,
fan of
yeah,
come from your heart, come from what's going on inside.
yeah,
Articulate it, name it. Say, God, this is what I'm feeling today.
yeah.
And
I agree.
it
Amen. I
ain't
agree.
good. It ain't
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
You know, please help me.
yep.
And
Name the
then,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, name the thing.
I feel this. This happened to me. What is
Right.
it? Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree with you.
That opens you up to that reality within. And that's the beauty of two-way prayer then, is again, using your imagination. If the reality we're in were to speak to you, what would he say?
Yeah.
You know, my beloved, my child, you know, and then just let it pour out. And that's what opens us to that right-mindedness that exists inside of us. And we go looking to people for our answers. I'm not going to find them from other people. They are within us. You know, what we need to do is find the key to the door where they're locked.
Yeah.
You know, so this one is interesting. Number 13, reflect on the value of poverty versus wealth. James says, it is certain that the prevalent fear of poverty among educated classes is the worst moral disease from which our generation suffers. Fear of poverty. I mean, we're materialists. I mean, that is the religion of today, you know, consumerism. You know, I want to consume everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And of course, this is the guy who came from his father made a fortune, and so he came from a very wealthy family. He came from one of the wealthier families in Boston.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he says, you know, that wealth is better than poverty. Let's not kid ourselves here. But he says, you know, wealth does not mean that you get anything remotely resembling peace of mind or a sense of stability or a sense of equanimity or a sense of anything. It's a guarantee. In fact, it tends to lead to disaster most of the time.
Yeah, there's never enough. There's never enough of it.
You become a slave to it. And I am guilty of that because I had a really successful career, you know, when I was drinking until it wasn't.
Uh-huh.
You get about 7 good years and then 2 really bad years is usually what happens, right? When in one of those careers that's, you know.
But it's usually the bad years that are going to teach you something, isn't that right?
Well, it's like, you know, hitting your hand with a hammer. You know, you learn that hitting your hand with a hammer is bad. If I could go back, I would learn other lessons. But yes, I did learn lessons from that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you know, a man with poverty can be utterly and completely free. A man with lots of wealth can be a complete slave. And you and I both know people like that. I have a lot of very good friends who are just slaves to money.
Yeah,
they're extremely unhappy.
I had a guy I was working with some years back, and I knew he was quite wealthy, but he was always worried about money. It was always on his mind. And I said, you know, Jim, aren't you amongst the, you know, where are you in the top population, you know, money wise? Well, probably the top 3%, you know? And then we discussed that. He came back next week and said, hey, you know, Bill, I lied. I'm really in the top 1%.
Yeah.
But there's never enough.
Yep.
There's never enough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the sickness that we're dealing with, both individually and as a world, you know.
Oh, well, I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah,
Charlie Rose interviewed Robin Williams, and Robin Williams was quite public about his journey with sobriety.
yeah,
And I think he had 19 years, and then Charlie Rose asked him, what happens? Why did you get the FS? Charlie Rose knew what was going on without mentioning any specifics. And Robin Williams, God bless him, RIP.
yeah.
You know what he said? He said, "Look, I was sitting there in my G5, my private jet 5-seater. I looked over to the guy next to me, who I knew. Guess what? He had a G9.
Oh no. Oh,
he had a 9-seater, and I took a drink. And never enough.
Jesus,
You know,
God.
and that was Robin Williams being serious as a heart attack.
Mm.
It's never enough, no matter what you have. And that's the problem with humankind, right? We just feel it's the longing.
And that's the poverty that James is talking about here, huh? I have enough. I have enough. Yeah. All right. This was good. There's the 14, number 14 is being of service to others, but we have a whole step on that. So, and you have a whole chapter really on that, on taking this transformation and turning it into service for others. Freedom from the bondage of self is another way of putting it. So,
Yeah.
Paul will be back next week, and we'll take a look at that. It's also going to be our final episode in this series, and I did want to invite folks. I've had a couple of questions come in, but at the end of the episode next time, I'd like to throw a couple of questions out on the table, Paul, and we'll kick those around. So if these discussions on William James have brought up some questions in your mind, or something to know about the history, or just maybe some of the finer points of James, we'd love to kick him around a little bit next week. So I think that's all I got. Thank you once again, my friend. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I will look forward to next week. And good people out there, thank you for tuning these in. If the podcast was helpful, please let a friend know. And we want to get this word out to as many people in recovery as we can. So thank you. God bless, and keep coming back.